What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Lee. Today, I want to ask a question a lot of Christians would consider blasphemy. Is Yahweh, the God of the Bible, actually the father of lies and a murderer from the beginning? Now, as you know, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in Yahweh. I don't believe in Satan. And I don't believe the Bible's supernatural claims. But for this message, I'm going to step into the Bible as if it's telling the truth about its own characters. Inside that framework, I want to compare two figures, Yahweh and the being Christians call Satan or Lucifer, and ask the question, who really fits the description Jesus gives in John chapter 8, murderer from the beginning and father of lies? Now, if you study the history instead of just the Sunday version, early Israelites didn't even have a clear Satan figure the way Christians talk about him now. That developed later. What you see over and over is this: Yahweh takes full credit for good and bad. Then later tradition shifts the blame for evil onto a separate character. In the Hebrew Bible, Yahweh says he forms light and darkness, makes peace and creates calamity. When disaster hits a city, he says he is behind it. That is not me editorializing it. That's the text itself. But Christians are uncomfortable with a God who creates evil and calamity, so they push a lot of that on to Satan. He becomes the cosmic scapegoat to get the heat off Yahweh. For this sermon, I'm not talking history. I'm stepping into Christian imagination. Yahweh and Satan both exist. Both have agency. And I'm asking, inside their story, who actually does the killing and the deceiving? Let's talk about the free will game. Christians love to say God gives everyone free will. Then you go into the text. You see Yahweh hardening Pharaoh's heart. So Pharaoh will not let Israel go, so God can send plague after plague, and then kill the firstborn of Egypt to magnify his own name. That is not free will. That is manipulation. You see theology like Romans chapter 9 saying, it's not of him that wills or runs, but of God who chooses. Vessels prepared for glory, vessels prepared for destruction. So already the idea of a loving God giving everyone a fair shot is cracking. Inside their own book, Yahweh rigs the game, then punishes people for playing the only hand he gave them. Keep that in your mind when we talk about murder and lies. Let's talk about the murderer from the beginning. Let's deal with Yahweh's body count, yeah? Let's walk through just a sample of the Old Testament stories Christians gloss over. The flood. Yahweh decides the world is too wicked and drowns everyone. Men, women, children, and almost every animal on earth. He could have snapped his fingers and fixed human hearts. Instead, he chose mass death by water. Egypt and the plagues. After hardening Pharaoh's heart himself, Yahweh kills every firstborn in Egypt, human and animal, children in their beds, infants in their mother's arms. Remember, if he had not hardened Pharaoh's heart, none of that was necessary. Sodom and Gomorrah, a full city burned with fire and brimstone. Christians love to highlight sexual sin, but Yahweh's fire doesn't stop to separate adults from children. They all burn. The conquest of Canaan. In Joshua, you read commands and reports where entire cities are put to the sword. Men, women, young and old, children included. Some passages even celebrate the idea of dashing babies on rocks and ripping open pregnant women as part of judgment. David's child with Bathsheba. David sins. Yahweh's solution is to strike the child with illness and let it suffer for days before it dies. The baby didn't cheat with anybody, but it pays with its life. And then you have Achan's family. One man steals from the banned items. The punishment is not just on him. Joshua commands, and they stone him and burn his entire family, children included. Now there are more. Sieges leading to cannibalism. Curses where children are foretold to be smashed to pieces. All through these stories, there is one pattern. The one making the decision, the one sending the calamity, the one commanding the killing. It's not Satan, it is Yahweh. So when Jesus later talks about someone being a murderer from the beginning, you have to ask, who actually has the track record? Let's go to the next point. The father of lies. Who is doing the deceiving? In the garden narrative, Yahweh tells Adam that if he eats from the tree of knowledge, in that day he will surely die. Adam and Eve eat. They don't die that day. Their eyes are opened. They gain knowledge of good and evil. The serpent, on the other hand, tells them that they will not die in that day and that their eyes will be open. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what happens in the story. So in that scene, Yahweh's statement doesn't match the outcome. The serpent's statement does. But Christians twist and stretch the language to defend God and condemn the serpent. But if you just read the story straight, the one who is more honest in that moment is not Yahweh. Then you have explicit passages where Yahweh uses deception. He sent a lying spirit to deceive King Ahab through his prophets, leading him into a battle where he dies. Prophets are enticed to speak falsely and then punished for being deceived. Jerusalem is told there will be peace when disaster is actually at the door. That is not the behavior of a being who hates lies. That is someone weaponizing lies for his own purposes. So again, when Jesus talks about a figure in their story who does not stand in the truth and is the father of lies, you have to ask, whose behavior matches that description? My next point is that Lucifer is portrayed as the liberator in their own story. Let's look again at the Eden story through a different lens, You have two humans placed in a garden, naked, with no knowledge of good and evil, a tree that can open their eyes, a God who knows good and evil and wants to keep that knowledge from them. He warns them not to eat under the threat of death. The serpent comes in and offers something else: knowledge, awareness, the chance to be more than obedient animals who don't understand their own condition. When they eat, their eyes are opened. They see their nakedness. They become more like the God who wanted to keep them in the dark. Yahweh's reaction is anger, expulsion, and curses. The serpent's act is portrayed as rebellion, but functionally, he is the one who brings enlightenment in the story. So if you step into the narrative as if it's real and ask, who wants humanity kept ignorant and dependent, and who wants them aware, awake, and closer to divine knowledge? The roles of Yahweh and Lucifer start to look very different from the Sunday school version. Now, I'm not telling you to go and worship Satan. I don't believe he exists any more than I believe Yahweh does. But what I'm saying is this: if you take the Bible seriously on its own terms, the character, that most looks like a murderer and a deceiver is not the serpent in the garden. It's the God drowning the world, burning cities, ordering genocides, killing children, and sending lying spirits. If a human ruler behaved like that today, you wouldn't call him loving. You'd call him a tyrant. The deeper question is, why are you still trying to bend your mind and your morality around protecting that image of God? But here's the self-sufficiency takeaway. You don't need a violent, insecure deity to live a moral life. You don't need to be a sheep waiting on a shepherd. You don't need to worship anyone who demands loyalty backed by fear, hell, and eternal threats. Ladies and gentlemen, you have your own mind, your own capacity for empathy, your own ability to see that causing unnecessary suffering is wrong. That is enough. So for the Christians listening, I'm not asking you to agree with me today. I'm asking you to have the courage to read your own book without excuses and see who really fits the label of murderer and father of lies. And for those already deconstructing, or you're done with it, you don't need Yahweh to lead you or to guide you. You can build your own life on your own intelligence, your own wisdom, your own logic and reason, as long as you're not going out of your way to harm anyone. I thank you for listening. Remember, as I say, life is suffering. Death is mercy. No one is coming to save you. So think for yourself.